slide. So now, before we move on, I would like to show us what coordinates are. Remember, we say the coordinates of a point are a pair of numbers that define its exact location on a two-dimensional plane. Recall that the coordinate plane has two axes at right angles to each other called the x and y axes. The coordinates of a given point represent how far along each axis the point is located. So to appreciate this more, I would like to show us what coordinates are. Let me show us what coordinates are. So by looking at this is what coordinates are. Remember, if you are asked what are the two coordinates of a point, please, I will encourage you, the right one is the x and y axis. Remember, the x axis is the horizontal line. This is the horizontal line, which is the x axis, and the vertical line is known as the y-axis. So if you are asked a point, the coordinates of 2 points is the x and y. Please don't be carried away by saying it's yx. No, x comes before the y-axis. So in this case, if you are asked what are the coordinates of point A, as you can see, is 20, 10. Remember, the x-axis should come before the y-axis. It's 20, 10, because the x-axis is 20 and the y-axis has 10. Remember, the x-axis comes before the y-axis. So let's move on. Now, coordinates of a point. As shown or mentioned earlier, this is the x-axis, which is the horizontal line, and this is the y-axis, which is the vertical line, and this is the horizontal line, which is the x-axis. So the coordinates of those points, this is another example. You mention is 4, 2. So the x comes before the y. Please don't be carried away. Someone may say, why is it not yx? No, that is wrong. Because in a normal situation, once you are counting or reciting your alphabets, you always count x before y and not the other way around. So let's move on to the next slide. And the next thing we need to look at is what is the midpoints of a line. So in this case, the midpoint of a line is the middle point of that particular straight line. So the summary of this, to calculate the midpoint of the straight line P and Q, You can see the point of P has two coordinates, which is 1 and 2. So which is when the point P, when the x-axis is 1, the y-axis is 2. So meaning this point P has two axes. One, the x-axis is 1, and 2, the y-axis is 2. Then if you look at the point Q, these two lines means the x-axis, this is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. So the x-axis comes before the y-axis. Question. One may say, well, it's a lot easier. I can always look at the middle of the straight line, which is here. Then I can say, okay, this is the x-axis, which is 3.5, and the y-axis is 4. Yes, you are very correct. Such analysis is very correct. But we are looking at a scenario where you'll be writing a formal exams. I will always encourage you, please show your working out, because there's every possibility that each question comes with show your working out, show your step-by-step guide. Please, I want to encourage my viewers all over the world here to learn how to calculate the midpoints of a straight line. So to do that, you say it's just to calculate which is your x1 plus x2 divided by 2. In other words, you say it's the average of the s coordinates. So what it simply means, the average of the s coordinates is to take the s coordinate of one point, you add it by the s coordinates of point Q, then you divide by 2. You can see the s coordinate of point P is 1 plus the s coordinate of point Q is 6. As you can see, the 6 is here. So if you add this, 1 plus 6 is 7, divided by 2 will give you 3.5. So as mentioned earlier, it depends on the textbook you are using, and it depends on the resources you are using. They mean virtually the same thing. In other words, the midpoint of the y coordinate is simply saying y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So how do we do this? So what you just needed to do is to take the y coordinate of point P, which is 2, plus the y coordinate of point Q, which is 6. You can see 6. So 2 plus 6 will give us 8. 8 divided by 2 will give us 4. So at the end of the day, the midpoint of the straight line will be 3.5 and 4. That's 3.5 and 4. I repeat, depending on the textbook you are using, some may say it's x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and for the y coordinates will be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. This and this written here are virtually the same thing. It doesn't matter. Why I had to show this, because I noticed some learners or some of my viewers who prefer a more easier one. So with these explanations, I believe will be able to differentiate both, or better still, they will be able to appreciate what this is telling us. But to appreciate more, it's better we'll look at some examples. Yeah, the midpoint is virtually the same thing. This is the same thing what I've just mentioned on in the previous slide. Now, let's look at the class exercises together and see how we'll go from here. Yeah, the first one says write down the coordinate of point A. Write down the coordinate of point A. Remember, the x-axis comes before the y. So at this point, the coordinate of point A is 3, 2, 3, and 2. Please, not 2, 3. If you are confused on what to say or which number that will come first, just remember the recitation of your alphabet. Because once you start from A to Z, your X comes before your Y. Then let's look at this. Write down the coordinates of point B. So this is the point B. Write down the coordinates. So remember, this vertical line is your y-axis and the horizontal line is your x-axis. So if you are writing the points, the coordinates of point B, that will be -2, -1, -2, -1. So the coordinate of point B is -2 and -1. -2 reason because it's x axis and this is the y axis. So -2, -1. So let's look at this. Plot the points 0, 2 and label the points C. Plot point 0, 2, 0, 2. So that means 0 is our x. When our x is 0, our y is 2. So when x is 0, y is 2. So that will fit in here. So let me clean this. Let me make some cleaning. So here will be the point C. You can see. Then the last one said plot the points -3 and 1 and label the point D. -3, -3, that means when x is -3, y is 1. So this will be the point. And we're told to label the points D. So I will also encourage my viewers or my learners all over the world to please pay attention to details. Whatever question that's being asked, please, I will encourage you to please pay attention to details. Now, I will be leaving the second exercises for my viewers to have a go at it. So we'll be looking at the last one. Why I want to look at the last one is to show us how to calculate the coordinates of a midpoint. So as mentioned earlier, I will leave the second exercises for personal revision. so that you can do this and check your answers in the next slide. So for this, we'll be looking at this. We'll be looking at this now. Let's continue. So I will leave this for my viewers or my learners to have a go. Then I will use this. I will solve this. This will be like a guide for them to use to help them solve or tackle any questions before them. So let's look at this. It said write down the coordinates of L. Remember, the coordinates of L is -3 and 3. -3 and 3. That will be -3 and 3. Reason. The x-axis comes before your y-axis. Then the next one is write down the coordinates of M. The coordinates of M will be 3 minus 1. 3 minus 1. That's 3 minus 1. Then the final question says find the coordinates of the point LM. Find the coordinates of the point of LM. So this is the point LM, L, and M. So in order to solve this, first and first, you need to draw a straight line using your ruler. I'm sorry, my straight line may not be that perfect because I'm using my bare hand and my cursor. So let me see, and my mouse that controls the cursor. So you can see, yeah, I'm trying to get a perfect line. Yeah, that's good. Though not very perfect by using the ruler, but at least this is a rough sketch and you understand what I mean. Now, the first step, we've drawn the straight line. Yes, it is understandable. One may look at it with the eye, you don't need to show the calculation, but the danger of that is there's a possibility of making mistakes. So I will encourage my learners or my viewers all over the world should please and please show your working out. By solving it, that will give you a precise answer, devoiding of any mistakes. So to calculate the midpoint, the first one says, the rule says x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So what you ask is what's our x1, which is our x1 is the x-axis for the point O. So that will be -3. Look at it. You can see it as -3. So that will be -3 plus the x2 of point O will be 3. You can see it this way. This is it. Plus 3 divided by 2. So this is -3 plus 3 is the same thing as 0 divided by 2. And 0 divided by 2 is the same thing as 0. So the average of the two x-axis will be 0. Then we need to pick the y-axis together. So to solve that too, please permit me to write on the graph So that will be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So what's our y1 of point O is 3. You can see it. This is 3. That will be 3 plus y2 of point M is minus 1. You can see it minus 1. It's 3 plus minus 1. I can put the 1 in brackets to help me differentiate it. So we'll continue. So 3 plus minus 1. The same thing, and positive and negative will give us negative. That will be 3 minus 1 divided by 2, which is 3 minus 1 is the same thing as 2 divided by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the coordinate of your midpoints, the y coordinate is 1. So at the end of the day, the coordinate of midpoint LM is 0, 1. So you can check here. It's somewhere here. I might not get a perfect one. It's 0, 1. So meaning when x is 0, our y is 1. So the line should be somewhere here. That means my straight line is not that perfect. So it should be here. It should be somewhere here. So let me see. Let me see if I can draw a perfect straight line. Remember, I'm using my bare hands and my mouse, which controls the cursor. So I might not get a perfect straight line, but this is a sketch. So meaning our midpoints of LM is 0, 1. So that's the beauty of showing your calculation so that you can get the exact point rather than guessing, which is prone to making mistakes. So let's see what I will do is with this is a guide. This is a guide. So let's see how the answer goes out. Looks like you can see this is the answers, and I've shown you how to solve this. We looked at numbers 1, question number 1 and 4. So we'll be leaving, I left question number 3 as a guide. Remember, the answer is only a guide. So I will encourage you to please practice this before making reference to the answer to check your working out. So because of time, I will be leaving this page for my viewers and learners to have a go. This, this, and this. So after 7 days, you can make reference. You can make reference to the answer slide to help you check if you are doing the right thing. Remember, I may not be there to watch over you, but for efficiency and for self-interest, I will encourage you, please practice before going to the answer to check. I remember, I almost forgot. Remember, this is a disclaimer. All these resources is meant for revision purposes and to help deepen your appreciation and your ability on how to plot, on how to find the coordinates and make points on a graph. So we'll move on. This is the answers. Please do your own. Create time for your personal studies. That will make you appreciate more these resources. So we'll move on. Now, the next thing is we'll be talking about gradients. Gradient is a particular point, it's a particular subtopic when it comes to graph. So I will encourage my learners to understand this. Yeah, there are so many formulas or there are so many ways to calculate your gradients. There are so many ways to calculate your gradients. So from this analysis, this is saying the gradient is changing y divided by changing x, but it's fine for similar purposes because based on popular or based on research, I found out that most viewers prefer acronyms which they can remember easily. So all this summary of this is to find the gradients. For me, I'll say the gradient is the same thing as your distance, distance up, distance up, distance up divided by your distance across, distance across, distance across. Yeah, as mentioned earlier, gradient is equal to distance up divided by distance across. It's the same thing with changing y divided by changing x. As I said, most viewers or most of my learners will prefer this because this clicks very fast. This clicks very fast. Distance up divided by distance across. In the next slides, we'll look at what this means. Or look at what this means. So you can see this is it. I've really mentioned it. So we'll say distance and gradient is distance up divided by distance across. So let's move on. So let's look at this. You can see I'll take this. I will look at the first one. Then with the guide of this first one, I will encourage my learners to try question 2 and 3. After trying it, they can now make reference to the answer slide, which will help them know or which will help them check if they're doing the right thing. So you can see the line L is drawn on the grid. Work out the gradient of line L. Remember, our gradients, our gradients is equal to distance up, distance, distance up, distance up divided by distance across, distance across. So to solve this, one interesting fact about gradient is as long as you can form a right angle triangle, your answer will be correct. You can see, as long as you form a right angle triangle. So let's look at this. Distance up divided by distance across. So to find our distance up, we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 divided by distance across. So across will be this line. So you count 1, 2. So your gradient of line L is 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. We can check another one if you want us to check, as I mentioned earlier, irrespective of as long as you can form a right angle triangle, your answers will be correct. They will be the same. So let's look at this older one. Distance up divided by distance across. Let's see if we will get the same answer too. So that will be 1, 2. That's 2 divided by distance across. This is 1. So 2 divided by 2 is still 2. You can see they are the same. So let's try the last one again. You can see distance up. We are forming a right angle triangle, then distance across. So distance up will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I repeat, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6 divided by distance across. That's 1, 2, 3. So this is 1, 2, 3. You can see our gradient is 6 divided by 3 is still 2. You can see we have 2, 2, and 2. So in summary, as long as you can form a right angle triangle using the straight line, there you will get the same answer. Please, I will encourage my learners to use this as a guide to solve questions 2 and 3. After solving, you can now move on to the next slide to check your answers. So move on. This is the answers. Remember, the formula used here may not be the same, but they mean the same thing. So in this, it was used rise and run. Distance up, distance across, they are the same, depending what you can use to remember, or depending words, depending, you can use anyone depending what you can remember. Go ahead and use it. As mentioned earlier in the first video, in maths, there are so many routes that leads to a particular destination. And our destination is getting the correct and the right answer. So let's move on. Yeah, on the last one, we'll be looking at the equation of a straight line graph. The equation of a straight line graph is this, where your y is equal to mx plus c. Y is equal to mx plus c. Y is equal to mx plus c. And the question is, what's the value, where your m is the gradient. Your m is the gradient. Your M is the gradient, and y your C is your y-intercept. 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 Question: what is our y-intercept? Your y-intercept is the point where the straight line crosses the y-axis. So at this point, this is your y-intercept, which is -1. And your gradient, as usual, your gradient is distance up divided by distance across. So you can take it from here, distance up, and take it from here, distance up divided by distance across. This is your gradient, which will be 3. So once you do the calculation, distance up divided by distance across. So let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6. Let me count again. So that is, okay, this is 4. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gradients distance up, which is 6 divided by distance across. So this is the line here. So that is 1, 1, 2. So 6 divided by 2 will give us 3, which is the gradient. So remember, this is our gradient 3. And for clue, your gradient will always have x in front of it. Remember, our straight line equation is y is equal to mx plus c, where our m is the gradient and our c is the y-intercept. I've shown you what the y-intercept is and what our gradient means. We've done this. So let's continue. This is an example. Let's continue and see if we can figure out the work. If we can figure out examples, if we can solve our examples. All these are just examples. So let's look at this. Let's work this out. Now, questions on the worksheet. This is, well, if you print this out, definitely this will be your worksheet. So the first question says, a line asks the question this, write down the gradients of the line. Remember, your gradient will always have x in front of it. So the gradient of this straight line equation is 3. And write down the y-intercept of the line. Y-intercept will be the point where the straight line crosses the y-axis. And in other words, your y-intercept stands on its own. So this is the y-intercept, which will be 4 or plus 4. So write down the value of your y-intercept will be 4. As mentioned earlier in the previous slides, we've seen how to calculate our gradients and how to figure out our y-intercept. So I will encourage my viewers to have a practice, to have a go at this question. So they will be able to appreciate, I repeat, appreciate the equation of a straight line graph. Or let's do this together. based on comments or popular demand. Work out the equation of the line L. Remember, the equation will be our y is equal to our mx plus c, where m is your gradient. And to solve for the gradient, we'll say is distance up divided by distance across. As mentioned earlier, you can use any point as long as you can form a right angle triangle, you will still arrive at the same answer. So let me take it here. So our gradient is distance up divided by distance across. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. So our distance up is 4. Then our distance across is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 divided by 4 give us 1. So this is equal to, our gradient is 1x plus our c, which is our y-intercept, is the point where the straight line crosses the y-axis. So this point will be -1, -1. So in summary, our final answer will be y is equal to 1x is the same thing as x, because in maths we don't put this way. So we leave it at this to the x. So positive times negative will give us -1. So the equation of the straight line graph is our y is equal to x minus 1. So as mentioned earlier, I will encourage my learners to use this as a revision guide, a revision note, to appreciate every subtopics we've talked about. This is the correction. So please, before you practice more, solve, then make reference to the answer to check how far you are going. Yes, drawing a straight line graph. This is it's the function of completing the table of value, which we've talked about, but for quick reference, I will repeat it here again. As I said, this is the table of value. To draw an accurate straight line graph is a function of completing your table of value correctly. So let me repeat this again. I've said this in the first video, but let me repeat this based on popular demand. So you write this: y is equal to 2x 2x, or better still, okay, let's continue. So y is equal to 2x plus 4. So if you are told to draw a straight line graph, your first point of call is to bring out the equation, which is this. So what you just needed to do is to replace all x with the values here. So we can see we've been, the first value for x is -1. That's 2 minus 1 plus 4. So 2 times -1 is the same thing as -2 plus 4. So -2 plus 4 is the same thing as 4 minus 2, which will be +2. So -2 plus 4 is the same thing as +2. So in essence, when our x is -1, our y value will be 2. Then we'll take the next one. Y is equal to 2. Then we replace the value of x with 1. This is 1 plus 4. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 4. So the final answer is 6. So when our x is 1, the value of our y is 6. The next one, you can see when our y will be 2x. So as usual, you replace the value of x with 2 plus 4. So 2 times 2 will give us 4 plus 4. Now will be 8. So when the value of x is 2, our value of y is 8. Now you come to the graph, then you plot. So when our x is minus 1, the value of our y is 2. So you asterisk here. When the value of x is 0, y is 4. Asterisk here. When x is 1, our y is 6. Asterisk here. When x is 2, y is 8. Asterisk here. When x is 3, y is 10. So with this, you can draw a sharp straight line. Please draw a sharp straight line. Using the ruler will be more perfect. Remember, I'm using my bare hand and my mouse, which controls the cursor. So this is the way your straight line graph will look like. As usual, please keep practicing. You can make reference to other resources and use this also as a guide to help deepen your knowledge on coordinates, calculating the midpoint, gradient, equation of a straight line graph, and how to complete your table of values and to plot your straight line graph. Remember, keep practicing. The more you practice, the more you get better at whatever you are doing. And remember, practice makes perfect. And see you at the top. See you achieving that desired grade. Thank you. Thank you. This is your host, Valentine. Thank you.